I'm really excited to introduce my next guest. For those of you that don't know who he is a retired fighter pilot, a retired Delta Airlines pilot, and he was my commanding officer in VFA 113, Commander Gary Koger. Commander, welcome to my podcast. Thanks for doing this.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Joe. I'm have a lot of fond memories. I don't know if I remember them all, but I'm going to do my best here.
Well, I'll tell you what, I joined the Navy because I loved airplanes. So I go to all the air shows. I have a lot of questions. So I had so much fun in our squadron. First of all, thank you for being such an amazing commanding officer. It was, there was a great group of guys and we really cared about the things we did. So hopefully while we were all in the squadron together, we made you proud, to be our commanding officer.
Well, you certainly did that. I was lucky because I had a great little cadre of officers who were all, exceptional guys. And the men and chiefs we had in our squadron were just phenomenal. It made my job easy. And I was really proud to be a CO of that squadron.
Well, I'll tell you what, being in the Navy, especially being in that squadron, I tell my kids all the time, I went from being an 18-year-old kid in high school to being a man, and the Navy turned me into a man, and the responsibilities that I had, it was amazing. And it was the best decision I ever made, was joining the Navy. And when I got to pick my orders, and I picked VFA 113, and to this day, I'm so glad that I did. So, but to get to talk to my commanding officer, this is really a thrill for me because as a fighter pilot, I know you have some stories, and I told myself I would just get a couple of questions. As of right now, I think I have about 29. So so let's just start from the beginning. Where did you grow up, and what made you want to strap yourself into a jet and take off from a boat in the middle of the ocean?
Well, I was a Navy brat, but my father left the family when I was maybe, I guess it was in fifth grade. And so my mom came down to her home, which was Northwest Florida, and raised myself and my two sisters. And we saw the Blue Angels flying over us almost, every other day, it seemed like. So I was always, plus my dad was a Navy pilot, and he flew in World War II, dive bomber pilot. And so I have all that history, but also just being in Pensacola, which is the birthplace of naval aviation. And it was inspiring. And that's what got me looking at that. In fact, I almost went on a music career because I was a jazz trumpet player, but the call was too strong. So I went to the Navy.
And so when you finally got a chance to start flying, what was that like? I mean, you had the bug in you and the history, but what was that like when you finally made that dream come true?
Well, you never know what it's going to be like that first time. I'd had a couple of commercial flights, obviously, and as a passenger, not obviously, but I had the opportunity to do that. But the first time that I went up with being instructed, it was in a light airplane. I was in my third year of college, and the Navy was paying for it because I was at the Naval Academy, and it was an opportunity that was afforded to us. So I gave it a shot, and it was as much fun as I had hoped. A little bit nerve-wracking because, you just never know. You're up there with one other guy in a little airplane with one engine. So you have to do it and see what it feels like. And for some people, it's you just love it, or other people are just, maybe it's not the thing for them. You can tell pretty quick.
Right. Well, how many different planes did you get a chance to fly?
I don't even know if I remember all those, but I can tell you in the Navy, I flew the basic trainers, T-34B Mentor in the prop, and then in the jets, I flew a T-2. And I hate to say this, but I also flew the TF-9, which is a Korean War vintage jet, for my advanced trainer. And then I went onto the fleet where I flew the A7B, the A7A, the A7 Echo, and then eventually transitioned to the F-18 and flew the F-18 Alpha and the Bravo and the Charlie and the Delta. So flew all those. And that's kind of, I did get some time in the TA4, and I actually flew some T-28 time doing some, which is a big old prop airplane, which I use for close air support for spotting, for, telling pilots what to attack and where their hits are going in the training environment. I did that as well.
So when you strapped yourself into a Hornet for the first time, especially coming from an A7, now when I was in my school, we did all of our practice loading on A7s and A4s, but when you strapped yourself into the Hornet for the first time, what was that feeling like? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, of course, you've gone through book training and a few simulators, although the simulators were pretty basic in those days. But just the feeling of the airplane, it's so far advanced. There's so many knobs and buttons for both hands on the throttles. There's like 5 different buttons you can push for various things. And on the stick, you have all kinds of similar devices in that airplane. And then just going down the runway the first time, the thrust acceleration, you get airborne and you're pointed a lot higher than you were in the A7. And there was no doubt that you had lots of excess power. Not to mention, you have a radar, seeing other airplanes out there many miles away, and all of a sudden you're aware of everything around you because of its air-to-air radar capability. It was pretty amazing.
One of the things that I absolutely love the Hornets, and like I said, when I was in my A school, I heard that if you were top of your class halfway through, you got to pick your orders. Now, I joined the Navy because of Top Gun. the whole thing appealed to me. I don't know why I didn't choose the F-14. I guess because they said the Hornet loaded a lot of bombs, and that's what I wanted to deal with. So, but when I chose the Hornet, I was so glad that I did. We had so much fun, with every part of that plane. So, never got a chance to fly in one, but I could only imagine. And one of the things that we loved was being out on the carrier. Surprisingly, my kids can't believe that, but I loved being on the flight deck. What was that like as a pilot? How about this? Describe your first cat shot. What was that like? I'm assuming that wasn't in a Hornet.
No, it was in a T2, and yeah, it's you've seen it on the video. They've told you what to expect, but there's just nothing. You know that you have to clear the ship. You have to get out of the way of the ship in case something happens to an engine, but you also have to get an attitude set so you're going away from the water. But even in the T2, it's going from 0 to in the T2, 150 in about a couple of 100 feet. It's a real slingshot, and it's exciting, and it's loud, and it's confusing, but off you go. And it's a blast. It's fantastic. I love cat shots, not landing so much, but the cat shots are fun.
Now that's actually my next question. Your landings. I mean, I've seen all the videos, and obviously I was on the flight deck watching those come in, but at night, I mean, what was that like? How, what went through your mind? The whole process of landing on a boat.
Yeah. Well, you got to do a lot of those day landings first. And even that is challenging and exciting. And this takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of precision, and you have to have a lot of help. You have an LSO there on the ship you're seeing what they call the meatball or the Fresnel lens, telling you if you're high or low. And you have something in the airplane to tell you if you're going fast or slow, because you have to hit the wire where they are, and you have to be on speed. If you're going too slow, that's bad. And if you're going too fast, you could actually pull out the wire or break your hook. So there's a lot of moving parts, very exciting. The night traps are really kind of scary. We had a Vietnam guy talking to us when I was in flight school, saying that they they attached some medical devices to them when they went to fly their alpha strikes over Haiphong and Hanoi, dropping bombs, and then they'd come back and land on the ship. Their blood pressure, their pulse, all that was highest when they were landing at the ship, rather than dropping bombs with stuff even shooting at them. Because it is very, it's kind of weird because it's totally black. You got some little bit of lights out there until you get within about a mile of the ship, and you can actually see some more lights, but there's not very many lights there to line up on and to, again, measure your glide slope and your airspeed and scanning all that stuff. And then, of course, you hit the deck at night, pitch black. If you miss it, you're pitch black again, and you better rotate and get your power on. But as soon as you hit the deck, you jam the power all the way up, just in case you miss it, just in case. You remember that noise on the flight deck, right?
I miss it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say. Yeah. I don't miss the night shot landings, the night cat shots, or the night landings, but it was fun. It kept your heart up.
So did the landings and the cat shots, did that do anything to your body over the years? Or were you so strapped in that you were almost unfazed by it?
No, we make a lot of jokes about it, what it does to you for your old age. You can make excuses for what's wrong with you, but I would say pulling G's in the airplane, when you're really yanked back on the stick for turning fights or whatever in training, that I think affects you a lot more than cat shots and traps. I mean, those are like the best roller coaster you've ever been on, but it's nothing. The G's I think is what can actually, if you pull enough G's and you have enough sorties doing that, I think that can affect you.
What's the most G's you ever pulled?
Well, the limit on the A7 with the A7, I believe was 6 G's. The F-18 was 7 or 7.5, and you pull until when you're pulling really, really hard, for a long time you have a G suit on, which helps. You have other things you can physically do to help you keep your consciousness, but if you fly and pull 6 G's very sudden or for a sustained amount of time, you start to gray out, they said. That's when your vision just kind of goes like this, and then you have to let off some, otherwise everything goes dark. And so that's one of those hazards of naval air or flying in jet aircraft.
Right. And what was a typical day for you when you were at sea? What was that like for the pilots? I know what I did all day. What was it like for you guys?
I spent a lot of time going around the shops, ordnance and all the AVMs, all the other shops. So I kind of know what you guys did, but and I was a maintenance officer for almost 2 years. But and it depended on my job. I was a junior officer, then I was a department head, and then I was an operations officer for the air wing, and then I was the XOCO. So your routine changes, but you have to be aware of the flight schedule, know when you're flying. You may not be flying that day, or you may be flying 2 flights that day. So you have to know that, and you build your day around that, of course. But you're up early. You got to read the message board as an officer and see if there's any action items that you have to attend to. And you already have a list of things, a to-do list about a mile long that you have that you have to get to on that day and that week and that month. As you get more senior as an officer on the ship, you kind of have to do some strategic planning, because there's things that you have to do the next month and 2 months. And when you get back off cruise, there's things that have to be planned for and ordered, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of those kind of things that's in your wheelhouse that you have to attend to. But usually you're going to the dirty shirt wardroom to grab breakfast. You have to get down to your brief in time, because you have like an hour and a half before your launch that you're going to be briefing and figuring out, coordinating with other pilots in the squadron, maybe even other squadrons. If it's an air wing strike, it may be maybe 30 or 40 people in the brief. But then you have to be at the flight deck probably about 30 minutes. And of course, you got to go and get suited up with your harness and your G suit and all the helmet and all that, and get up there. You got to pre-flight your airplane. You got to go through all the checks, and you got to be ready to launch when they start turning airplanes. And then that's it for that event. You get down. As soon as you get down after your flight, you're going to be an LSO is going to come by and tell you how good or how bad you did on your landing, and then you're off to your next event, or you're going to go around. If you're in the mains department, you may have to go be checking with your chief petty officers or your first class, second class, or your supervisors of your shops to see what's going on, and then all the other stuff you have to do.
So what typically, I mean, if you had a bad trap coming in, what was there repercussions for that when LSO officers came and told you how you did?
Well, in the squadron ready room, we have what they call a greenie board. It's a board and your name's there, and it has a block for every landing that you get. So we're all shooting for 100 traps, right, for every cruise, because that's kind of a milestone, and everybody wants to try to get that many to be a centurion for that cruise. But for that at sea period, it almost looks like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's manually because we didn't have Excel spreadsheets in those days. And so you come in, and if you get there's a grading system. A 4 is a okay pass. A 3 is a fair pass. A 2 is a no grade. A 1 or a 0 is what they call a cut pass. A cut pass is a dangerous pass. An okay pass is mean you kept within the parameters all the way down until you landed. A fair pass, if you got a little off, you got a little fast, a little slow, a little high, a little low, something on the way in, and so it's marked down. A no grade, you may have grabbed a 1 wire, or you may have just been all over the place. So they come in and they grade you. You don't like to get no grades. Fairs and okays are all right. You want to get an okay pass. There's a big pride thing. The F-18 was about one of the easiest airplanes to land because it was so power responsive. It had an amazing auto throttle if you wanted to use the auto throttle. And it was just so sensitive. You could move it around a lot easier than, like an E2 or an A6 or something. So it was easier to land. So we expected to have good grades, and we usually got them. But if you didn't, you had to really go back and kick yourself and kind of think, what did I do wrong? And of course the LSO was going to tell you what you did wrong. And you just kind of think that through. Now, if you had a bunch of bad passes or bad grades on landings, you probably wouldn't be out there with us anyway.
Right.
Like once in a great while, we'd have a pilot, a junior officer that was getting off for some reason. And if he kept making scary enough passes, he may end up facing what they call a Fleet Naval Aviation Evaluation Board. And his wings may be at risk, so he's got they had to be good pilots to get there. So generally that was a very rare thing.
So when you landed, was it all you, or was there autopilot?
Well, it was all you almost all the time. In fact, you're responsible, so it doesn't matter who's flying it, but
right.
You're at night. We would occasionally do a pass that we called, in those days, I think we actually called them Category 1 passes, where you could hook up the autopilot and the auto throttle and just, your hands are behind everything as you come in and land. And they encouraged us to do that once every 5 or 6 landings. So the airplanes work, for one thing, because you never know, if you're hurt or something's not right. You may want that, or the weather's awful. You may want that auto pass. But most of us didn't like to do those because we didn't want to lose our skill level for manually flying it, especially at night, because you never know. Sometimes that stuff doesn't work. And you don't want to be depending on it when you have to land, especially in high seas or poor weather or the rain or whatever.
Boy, that deck could really get pitching out there, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the lens that we're using, the Fresnel lens, it has its own limits. So the ship can actually, what they call heave, when it's going up. This isn't too bad, but when the ship's kind of going up and down like this, your glide slope's going down there too. So the LSOs go to what they call MOFLess, because the lens may not even accommodate your glide slope if the ship's moving enough. So they manually move the meatball to tell you where to fly because they're anticipating the ship going down or up. And I don't know if you made the NORPAC cruise. We went up around the Aleutians.
That was cold. I was there.
Yeah, and the sea. I mean, every 3 hours, our front comes through up there along the Aleutian Islands, and it is gnarly weather. And the ship's always moving 30 feet. So it's a real challenge. I didn't even let all my junior officers fly at night because they were new to the airplane, new to the environment, and going up there is kind of the most dangerous place to fly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Being up on that flight deck, as long as I was all day long, it was so cold, but wow, was that beautiful up there.
Yeah.
Getting into Hawaii when we did, though, that was pretty nice.
Yeah. A big transition there. Big difference. Contrast. Yeah. It was always fun to go through there. Every time we went to Westpac, Iowa, we'd be stopping there on the way and stopping there on the way back because that's where 3rd Fleet headquarters is. And all the ship's staff had to go there and get briefed up for what to expect on the cruise and all that kind of stuff.
You guys actually had to work when we were in Hawaii? We got to play a little bit. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah. And we do spend so many days at sea in a row that you want to take advantage of that liberty. Of course, even with the guys in our squadron, we had a duty section, right? You always had to have like a third or a fourth of the people on board actually taking care of corrosion control and meant some tasks that just needed to be done, washing the airplanes. But it was easy to get everybody back real quick if we needed them. So,
So what was how difficult was deployments for the family when you were out?
Oh, that was hard. In my 20 years that I stayed in as commissioned officer, I had an unusual career because I had a lot of cruises. I mean, I had 9 extended deployments, 1 on a destroyer before I went to flight school. But so I had 8 extended deployments on an aircraft carrier. Anywhere, 1 or 2 was like 3 months. The rest of them were 6 to 9 months. And then there's all the workups before then, right? For each cruise. Right. I figured I was actually gone underway. We say Hayes Gray and underway for 7.5 years of my 20. So wow. I was gone that long. And it takes a toll on the family, your kids, your wife. Yeah, there's a lot of, it makes it really exciting when you come back and get to see everybody and spend time with them. But it's a difficult thing for family management, and a lot of people don't stay in because of that, because of the harm it does at times to the family. And for guys to stay in for long careers, it's even worse. So yeah, there's an upside and a downside to all that, right?
Right. Now, did you ever see anything wild from the cockpit up there? I know one of our there was a pilot, actually a Stinger pilot. He saw the Tic Tac UFO or whatever it was. But do you ever see anything crazy up there?
Well, are you talking about UFO type things?
Or anything out of the ordinary? Weather balloons? I don't know.
I've seen a lot of, down around Diego Garcia, I used to see, it almost looked like looking down in the fishing bowl and seeing guppies. The sharks that are down there are just unbelievable. The number of sharks that are there. It's just incredibly populated with those kind of creatures. And up around the coast on the Southwest Asia there, you see sea snakes all the time. Flying over the jungles of Thailand or the deserts of Oman or Saudi Arabia, you see some amazing things. Everything from camels to, and in the Thailand, Buddhas that are built in the side of a hill, these giant Buddhas that are there. And
you can appreciate that stuff while you're doing 400, 500, 600 miles an hour.
Well, on those type of flights, we wouldn't fly that fast because we were actually there training, and we'd run out of gas really fast if we kept that up. That's kind of your terminal speed as you're getting ready to pop up on a strike or something. But normally we'd be 250 to 350, something like that. And yeah, looking around. I mean, you still got to pay attention to the airplane and the train safety and all that. But when you see something like a big Buddha out there, or some of the other sites that we saw around Perth, Australia, the really cool bridges that you're flying right by in formation. Yeah, and waterfalls, mountains out in the southwest of the United States, flying through some of the valleys and over plateaus and canyons. It's pretty remarkable.
So, what do you think of UFOs? You think that's just a bunch of hooey, or?
I don't know. I seem to go on the side of hooey, if you will, just because I've seen several things there that I said, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" And then and I was on a cross country and I saw a white light that was just very intense, but there was nothing there. And as I got closer and closer and closer, it turned out to be an airliner that was just getting the perfect reflection until it got to within about 20 miles of me, and then I actually could see contrails and other things. But no, I can't say I've ever seen anything out there, and I don't know. This is a big universe, right? And who knows what God's put out there. But as far as the next solar system is to us, was that Alpha Centauri, whatever? I mean, they'd have to be flying for like even at several times the speed of light. It would be years and years and decades to get here. So I don't know.
So what do you think? What'd you think about Top Gun back in '86 and the newer movie that's out now? Did you? I know it helped recruiting because I was part of that generation, but
did it ever?
Your perspective?
I have a good Top Gun story. I got to go to Top Gun as a CO at the Shorten School, and I sent a lot of JOs there. But I was a CAG Ops in Miramar when the first Top Gun came out, and as soon as it came out, every weekend there would be carloads of college girls and 20-something girls in one van coming in to go to the officers club because they all thought they were going to meet, that Top Gun guy or whatever. No, it was great for naval aviation. And there's a lot of great scenes of great flying in there. There's a lot of hokey things too, a lot of things that are unrealistic, but I thought Top Gun 2 was very entertaining. And it really is a patriotic feeling from that, which is, I think, one of the biggest things from it, regardless of how much that's just kind of hokey, if you will.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I liked that they used the F-18 in the more recent one. That was fun. And a little thing. So I went to see it with my daughter, and when they got that old Tomcat and they went over the building and they took out their the landing gear, I leaned over. I'm like, they're going to have to rig the barricade. There's no way they can land. And next thing you know, they're saying, we have to rig the barricade. And my daughter's like, come on, Dad, don't ruin the movie for me. But
yeah.
But no, I love the second one, and I say all the time, it's a good thing I'm too old to re-enlist because I had that same feeling as I did back in the '80s.
Well, it would have to be a heck of a war for them to want us, I think. But yeah.
So what's something that Hollywood probably totally gets wrong about fighter pilots? I mean, they make the Tom Cruise and the Val Kilmers. What's something that they get wrong about you guys?
They're not the ones that were in Top Gun 1 and especially Top Gun 2. They're not that arrogant. They're not that conceited. They're not that full of themselves as that should. The things in that O Club scene in Top Gun 2, very snarky, treating a Navy captain that supposedly Tom Cruise was, and like he's just one of the boys. Yeah, they wouldn't do that. And their braggadocio, machismo, whatever. Guys, my experiences are not like that. They're more serious. They're more aware of the hazards and their own limitations. Not to say the challenges in there and that you don't want to go do it. You do. And you're anxious to fly those kind of missions if you're called upon to do it. That's what you trained for all those years. But that bit of I'm the best there is. That just you don't see that.
Well, I remember, I mean, I'm trying to remember a long ways away, but the pilots in the squadron, I had to, interactions with them almost every day. And I never saw that from any pilot. And I still remember a lot of their names too. And my favorite was always Lieutenant Nielsen. He was great with me. And I know they're not allowed to fraternize with the enlisted guys, but he made my time in the squadron really enjoyable. So
Otto Nelson, yeah, I'll let him know about those podcasts, and I'll try to get word to him. He's hard to reach. He kind of went off he's in Florida somewhere. He was in Jacksonville for a while, and he was actually doing some acting, believe it or not.
But I looked him up online, but I could never reach him. I could never find him.
Yeah, I talked to him here about 3 years ago, real briefly. And his ex-wife owns a bar in St. Augustine, so I've spoken with her. But he was quite a character, and he was a good pilot. And in fact, it got me in trouble during Desert Shield. We were out getting ready during Desert Shield, right? We're there before the war started, and we're flying missions, keeping airplanes away from the battle group. And a newscaster airplane with a news crew came out to take a picture, and Otto was sent out there, and he and his wingman in the F-18 to kind of tell him to go away. You shouldn't come this way. And he happened to decide to lower his mask and was flying like this. So they're taking a video of him with his mask off, which is a real no-no. You're supposed to keep your mask on in the airplane because oxygen. Anyway, and that airplane was my airplane because it had my name on it. So my name and that airplane is all over the NBC or ABC News, Dan Rather, whatever it was that night. And it's being broadcast everywhere. And I'm flying. It looks like I'm flying there with my mask off. So I had to go visit the Air Wing commander about that, the CAG. And he was aware it wasn't me, but he wasn't happy that one of our pilots was flying like that. So it was good in that my family got to see all that, but not so good that CAG got to see it. So.
Well, he, in my last few months in the Navy, we were on I can't remember if it had to have been a det on the Indy, but he took me up on the LSO platform, which scared the crap out of me. But I was up on the LSO platform. He let me fly a simulator time my last couple of weeks in the Navy, which was pretty amazing. He gave me, I think, 8 chances to land on the carrier. So, but either I did it on the last one or he totally took control. I don't know what, but on the last one, I was able to land on the carrier. I think he probably took control of it though. But yeah, he was really great. Oh, and one of the other things too. So when, on the ordnance team, I would stand out there, and you got to keep your hands up, and he would always keep his hands up or he'd start goofing around. And and I'm yelling at him with my hands. I salute him, and he would always flip me off as he was leaving. And it's like, what a great attitude this guy had. So
yeah.
he was always a lot of fun. So
yeah,
I made it.
He's a fun guy. He didn't stay in past his tour, later, but a lot of guys don't. He had other things he wanted to do, and but he was a great junior officer. He's a smart guy, good pilot, and very dedicated. And what I liked about him, probably more than anything, is the way he related to the men. I mean, to me, that's what a junior officer's worth is as much as anything else. Is how his leadership skills, his ability to communicate, and to have the men pay him some respect, and they'll do that if he's a good officer. And he was a
great officer. Yeah, I really liked him a lot. So, did you ever name your jet?
No.
Well, you guys are famous for your call signs.
We have call signs.
How did you get yours?
Well, my very first squadron, the A7 squadron, there was you get named a name and it sticks with you whether you like it or not. And usually in those days we earned it. Later in life, my career, a lot of guys would just get names either they invented for themselves or it sounded good. But in those days, they would actually, you'd earn your name. So the reason I got mine was one of the senior junior officers in the squadron who was kind of a funny guy. He was a guy that was not going to stick around in the Navy. He didn't have any desire to stay in the Navy any longer than he had to, but he was a really good pilot. But he about 6 months after I got in the squadron, he decided my name was going to be Cricket, because when I first got in the squadron, I was very quiet. I would not, open my mouth and chip in or give advice or any of that stuff. But once I'd been in the squadron for 6 months, when I was, and it's true, I waited till I was comfortable, and I figured I had a clue of knowing what I really was doing or saying. So I wanted to wait till I didn't want to, mouth off and say something that made me look stupid. So I waited till I was confident enough to make my inputs. And then he was making a joke out of that, the fact that I was chipping in after I'd been there for a while. And that's how I got my name.
I remember we had a guy in the squadron, a pilot in the squadron. His name was, his call sign was Elko. And I'm like, how did you get Elko? And I guess he crash landed in Elko, Nevada. Do you remember that?
No, I'm really at a loss. I don't recall a call sign Elko in VFA 113 when I was in it. It may have been after me or.
Well, it wouldn't have been after you because I was gone before you were.
Well, so, maybe there was an Elwood.
Or was he? He could have been in our sister squadron, but I could have sworn he was in our squadron.
Yeah.
But what's the craziest call sign that?
I can't tell you the craziest one because it wouldn't be suitable. But there were quite a few. Gosh, I wish you'd have given me a little heads up you were going to ask that question, because I could probably come up with some really great ones. But I'd have to think about that for a little while. Sorry.
I know there's so many of them out there.
Yeah.
So when you were in Desert Storm, did you get a chance to drop any live ordnance?
Oh, yes. Oh, no, not in Desert Storm, but I was going to say Slick.
Slick.
Yeah, there were two Slicks. There was a guy named Slick Simmons and a guy named Slick O'Hara. Slick O'Hara was my wingman on a flight out around Hawaii when we went out to drop some Mark 82 inerts, so 500-pound bombs on the Big Island of Hawaii back when we were allowed to do that in the volcanic area where the Army guys would be up there and they'd call us in to drop bombs. Well, in the A7, if you missed a pickle and hit this other button called the aux jet button, it would drop the whole rack. And he dropped his entire, he slicked the air, he took both racks, came off the airplane, and he lost not only the bombs, but the racks themselves, which are not cheap. Oh. And we went back to the ship and he had nothing on the airplane. So, of course, I was a department head at the time. And so we had a call to go up and see CAG, the Air Wing commander, right away, because he came back in. There was nothing on the airplane. Everybody knew it was gone. Something had happened. And the CAG was actually really nice about it. And CAG Waples, he was a real legend for any Navy people that might be listening to this. But he said, the first thing he said when the JO and I walked into the room, he said, well, Slick, how's your day been so far? So that was his call sign. And he
got it from the CAG.
Yeah, he got it from the CAG. Whatever he had before was gone. And that was his new call sign.
So during Desert Storm, did you get a lot of action up there?
Well, Desert Shield is where I was, we were in the middle of the Indian Ocean when Iraq invaded Kuwait. So we went smoking up there. We were the only carrier in that whole environment. There was one in the Med that went down on that side, but we were running up from the Indian Ocean near Diego Garcia when the invasion happened. And our first mission that we were tasked with was to go up and fly some caps way up into the Gulf and to try to draw out their MiGs, and maybe if they made a mistake, shoot them down. And so I was the senior CO in the Air Wing at the time, and they tasked me to be the flight lead. We went up there with 4 F-14s and 4 F-18s, and none of their MiGs came out, but some Air Force guys that had just flown into the country were doing a little reconnaissance up there, just getting familiar with the area. And we were setting up, looking up at Dakar, looking for some MiG cap stations to come down. And we had an Aegis cruiser that was down in the northern part of the Gulf that was going to help us out and give us a heads up. And as we were up there setting up our cap stations, sure enough, they saw some supersonic targets coming our way, up around 40,000 feet. And the Aegis cruiser said, "Hey, you got some bogeys coming in." I said, "Well, are they bandits?" Which means they're bad bogeys. And he said, "Well, we don't know, but they're not squawking," meaning they don't have the necessary IFF stuff on, at least to the point that they could see it yet. And so we thought this was the real deal. So we started separating and sorting as we were taught in the air-to-air school and Top Gun teaches for all these targets that were coming out. We had 8 airplanes going up trying to, and we had been already briefed by the flag officer on board not to shoot them unless they do something to, if they shoot a missile or they turn on you or anything, then it's free ball. You can shoot. But we were waiting, and we were getting about 20 miles away when the Aegis came up and said, don't shoot. They're good guys. They're blue. And so, and at the same time, the Air Force guys that were coming down over their recce flight all were slamming the airplanes, beaming us and trying to go back to the beach because they thought they were going to get shot down. So it was one of those close calls, but it was at the very beginning of Desert Shield, and the coordination between the Air Force and the Navy wasn't so good just then. So it got a lot better.
Did any of the Iraqis start shooting at you while you were up there?
No, they would never come out. The whole time we were up there, the 6 months our carrier was up there, they never came out. We got to go in and fly a lot of low levels all the way up to the border with Kuwait and out over the ocean to where you would draw a line across, not the ocean, but the bay, the Gulf. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of targets we had planned that we could almost see that the ones that we would be going after the first night, if it started while we were still there. As it turned out, there were 8 carriers up there and they only needed 6. So after we'd been up there for almost 6 months, they sent us home. So never on the Independence, we never actually dropped any bombs on the Desert Storm because we were gone before it started.
Was Jeff Zahn, was he on the Indy?
Zahn?
He was the A6 pilot that got shot down?
No.
His face was all over CNN when that happened.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't on the Indy anyway because we were gone. But yeah, I know there was that, and there was an A7 guy, I think, from the CAG-1 that I think may have also gotten accidentally shot down. I think by
they had A7s. They were still flying A7s then.
Mm-hmm. On the Kennedy had one air wing with A7 Echoes on it. The guy may have been an F-18, but the A7s were out there, and I think it was a blue on blue. I think it was a Saudi F-15 that shot him down accidentally.
Did you ever have any missions that could have gone sideways up there? Anything close?
Not really. I was capping one night right by the Straits of Hormuz, and there was and I was by myself. I was out there. E2 was doing the radar coverage, and I got a target coming at me about 40 or 50 miles away. And it's kind of where they were flying their F4s occasionally. This was much earlier. Actually, that was a cruise before the war started. But we were still Iran was the big enemy at that time, not yet Iraq. And it's coming down right at me, and I locked onto him and started going that way. And when we got about 25 miles, he turned and went into Bandar Abbas. He made a left turn and left. But that's about it, really, as far as enemy interactions with me.
I remember that that cruise, what is it, 88, 89. I loaded, I was the crew leader. We loaded the Harpoon, and we had a little mishap at sea.
The Jack Vivek thing, yeah.
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 Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually found that article online too. So that was yeah, that was a tough one for all of us in the squadron.
It was, but the pilot, I won't say his name because he's a good friend, and he ended up being a squadron CO. I mean, he was not at fault. I know he shot
That ship wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, no, they weren't, and not only that, but they were warned several times to get out. They left, but then they kept coming back in, and the agencies that were responsible for making sure they didn't come back in, Third Fleet, they missed them. They didn't see him come back in. So after several hours of waiting to get clearance to shoot, it was supposed to be a simultaneous shot with an F-18, a submarine, and a surface ship, all shooting missiles at this one target that was out there. When they finally gave the green light, our pilot ran over there, shot his weapon. It was a line of sight shot. So all he had to do is have a target there, which he did right there. He didn't have the target that was over there that was about halfway between us and them. And the missile did what it was supposed to do. It went that way, and when it went active, it saw something closer, and it went over there. So that was a very, very tragic thing. One crewman on the other ship lost his life, and it was because they came back into a hot range, and because the agency that was supposed to clear the area did not clear it sufficiently.
Well, if I remember correct, that missile didn't have a warhead on it either, so it would have blown it right out of the water.
It went through the superstructure of the ship like a stick of butter. It just went through there. It didn't slow it down at all, and there was no explosion, of course. And the pilot who had shot it, his job was to chase it to the target. So he had it locked up on his radar. It went down through clouds, which is another factor. There was an undercast there. He chased it down through the clouds, went underneath, and when he got underneath, all of a sudden he saw the weapon go take a left 45, and he looked over and he saw that other ship, and
wow,
he did his job. He screamed on 3 different frequencies for them, the people that were supposed to be monitoring the weapon, to put it in the water, which they could have done with a button, but they didn't hear him, weren't listening, and didn't even know that he'd shot. They didn't even know the range was green, and so it was several mistakes to make that happen.
So the pilot, and obviously we're not going to say his name. Did he cope well with that afterwards, or did it take a while?
It was difficult for him because he was second guessing himself. There were a lot of people that would, and there were some very senior, I'll just say that, officers that didn't want to be responsible for this and wanted to put it on someone else. They tried their best to put it on him. But there was a lot of blame to go around, but none on him, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm very familiar with the whole thing that transpired. And like I said, he did what he was told to do. And just got bit for it.
Well, one of my, I don't know if it's a favorite story, but it's a story. It's a mishap story at sea. I mean, you go to sea long enough, you're going to see stuff, but I was standing there. I was on the bow waiting for the CAG to launch in his F-14, and we're just standing there. And I was also part of the CAG arm team. So we armed all of his missiles, and we're just standing there waiting for him to launch. And next thing you know, we're all getting blasted in the face. I'm like, what the heck just happened? Well, he launched with his parking brake on and blew out all of his tires. I don't know do you remember that?
Well, there were 3 CAGs that might have been, is this on the Independence?
No, this was the Connie. This was on the cruise. Connie.
So I bet I know who it was, but I won't say his name either. He was actually an A7 guy that, as an air wing commander, he gets checked out in several airplanes he's allowed to fly, right? but that was not his main airplane. So,
well, that shut down all the flight ops. That FOD walk down was a nightmare. But
that's funny.
But
I
that's
don't remember that, but I wish I had.
Yeah, I caused some damage to, I believe it was the Connie, where we took a I think it was on the cruise. So Commander Picorn or Chenevieve's door, we took his door up the escalator and we broke the escalator, and we got in a little trouble for that. But he got us out of trouble, thank God. He said it's a good thing it was my door, but yeah, we had to we got in a little bit of trouble for that. So we learned a valuable lesson. The sign that says pilots only, they mean pilots only.
Yeah.
So
I can see why you would. I can see why you would want to use that to move something so heavy. But yeah.
Well, and his cabin was literally right at the top. Our was a stateroom.
Yeah.
It was literally right at the top of the escalator. So we were like, it's right up there. We'll just, who's gonna know? Yeah. Well, when the doors cocked and we didn't account for the stairs coming out from underneath, and yeah, we destroyed it. But so in your 7 years of sea duty, I'm assuming you went through a WOG day. What was that like for you? Did you do pilots experience WOG days like guys like me?
Yes.
Yeah. Or officers, I mean.
The crossing over the equator, called WOG Day. It's polywogs, but it's Neptune comes aboard and all kind of shenanigans go on. It's kind of an old Navy ritual that goes back hundreds of years. As it turned out, I went through that myself as a midshipman. I was on a destroyer out of Charleston, went down to Rio de Janeiro and went over the equator. And in those days, 1968, the enlisted guys on the destroyer were rough customers. I mean, they were not your gentlemen from the 1980s or whatever. And it was a hard WOG day, if you will. But later in life on the aircraft carrier, when then went back and forth across, so that was all fun and fun and games. But it was
well, maybe fun and games as a shellback. As a WOG, I didn't have that much fun.
Yeah,
I never got a chance to go back as a shellback though.
Yeah,
I don't even know if the Navy still has that tradition.
Oh yeah,
do they?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm not sure with women on the ship now. I'm not sure to what extent that goes. I guarantee you, it's nothing like the one I had in 1968. I can guarantee you that. But I don't know what they do. Nobody's going to cut their hair off, right? Nobody.
Yeah. I have my shellback card, and I have my grandfather's from World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. So, do you keep in touch with many of the your old squadron mates?
A few. Yeah, there's probably. Well, I got a lot of squadrons, right? So.
Yeah, that's true.
My very first squadron, VA 72. Yes, VA 25 when I was in my CAG Ops tours. In my XOCO tour, all those outfits. I have friends that some more than others, but yeah, I'd say, and I go to some reunions. I haven't gone to Tailhook since I retired, so I just never gone out there for that. But I've been to 1, 2, 3, 4 squadron reunions at different places. I missed one because of illness in my family that I had to attend to. But yeah, it's and there's 4 or 5 guys that are on a text stream with me that texting all kinds of stuff. One of them you already mentioned, that's Reef Picorni. So yeah.
I remember him. He cruised up in he used to have a Porsche, and he used to I used to see him cruising around the base in his Porsche all the time. It's amazing stuff I still.
He now has a vet. I think a 63. He has a vet now, but that's his baby. Yeah, I don't know if you remember Beef Myers.
Myers.
Yeah, he was a department head early on. He wasn't there when I was CO, but when I was XO, and Chenevie was CO, he was a department head, and Yeah, he's got that also. He lives up in Alaska though. So,
Do you remember Gunnar Brown?
yeah.
I wonder what happened to him. He was a tough cookie. I was a 18, 19-year-old kid coming in. I remember I tried to I shaved some like lines in my hair, and he got me first before any of the pilots saw me. But he gave me the business, and I said, Gunnar, I'm just trying to express my individuality. And I'll never forget this quote. He said, you can express your individuality. You just have to look like everyone else.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah. Gunners are unique. The
Yeah.
warrant officer that's a ordnance in charge of the ordnance shop. On all for people that may not know that, but they're a breed apart. They're great guys.
Oh yeah.
Again, very lucky with all my gunners I've had. So
Yeah, Gunnar Brown was not only was he awesome for me in the squadron, but he was in my separation class. So we both got out of the Navy at the same time.
wow.
So, and I know he moved back down to Florida, but I never heard from him, since we got out.
One of my chiefs and his senior chief, his name escaped me. He was avionics chief, senior chief, and he worked in QA. He worked in QA as a senior chief, with the QA officers. But he got hired by Delta when I did, and he was working in Delta avionics, and I ran into him several times. But
That's cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting out of the Navy, what was the transition like for you getting out of an F-18 and getting into a passenger plane?
Yeah, it's different. It's in the Navy, you're basically on duty 24/7 until you leave. And nobody, I worked for Delta Airlines, and it's a great company, and it is so easy. I mean, compared to that. Now, flying the airplane is different, a lot different. It actually takes almost a different set of skills to land and to manage that airplane well. Flying a single seat F-18 at night around the ship is different than landing in Paris, or in Amsterdam in a blowing snowstorm with 300 people sitting behind you that you're responsible for. And it all takes, different kind of skill sets. But the life, the job, the time off, the whole thing, the pay, the benefits, it's different. And so I don't know. I wouldn't trade my time getting to fly an F-18 and an A-7 off the aircraft carrier all those years. Wouldn't give it away for anything. Having said that, I really enjoyed my time as a commercial pilot and got to see a lot of neat stuff. I mean, I never thought I'd see Shanghai or Beijing except on a gun site, and I'm out there, flying airplanes over there and walking around the city and seeing things that I never thought I'd see.
Right.
Everything from Johannesburg to Dubai to Istanbul to Tel Aviv, Sydney, Australia. I mean, there's just so many neat experiences that I had as a commercial pilot. But again, it can't compare to the camaraderie, the friendships that you get in the military. I mean, nothing can compare to that. That sense of belonging, the part of the team, it's not the same. But
right.
Again, everything has their plus and minuses.
Yeah. So with all the crashes that we've seemed to have had this year already, I mean, what do you think about that? You still think it's the safest mode of travel?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And when you speak of crashes, I know that there's a lot of crashes that happen to third world airlines because of training, I think. But at the same time, the airplanes that are now being made by both Boeing and Airbus are just so forgiving, and they have such redundant systems. And you can lose numerous hydraulic systems, electric systems. and you got backups for the backups for the backups. And the pilots are trained, especially American pilots, American U.S. pilots, I should say. Delta, United, American, all the major carriers, and even a lot of the smaller airlines they're extremely well trained and extremely well suited and capable of recovering an airplane that's in distress. You can't do anything when you get hit by a helicopter 300 feet as you're rolling into a final when they come out.
I can't believe they even let them fly like that.
Me neither. It's crazy. No reason, no excuse for it, no reason for that in that environment. But as far as piloting an airplane and just being responsible for that, and again our air traffic control system, I think it's outdated and it needs a lot of improvements, and I think we have the right people working on the problem, but it does require some upgrading. But still, it's a fantastic, very professional group of people in the FAA that are very capable and work hard.
Well, I just thought of another question, and then I'll let you go. On September 11th, I'm assuming you were still flying for Delta. What was the whole atmosphere like then?
It was bizarre. It was really bizarre. It was really strange. I actually flew a Boeing 767 ER to London about it's like the second day after they resumed flying, and it was just so it was very unworldly. It just seemed very unrealistic to be doing that, because you were you didn't know about the security on the airplane because of all the lapses that had allowed those things to happen. There was all these new procedures in place, everything from vetting in the airplane, but also we could never come out of the cockpit except for very, very well orchestrated times to be able to go out to use the restroom or whatever. And then even going into getting into Europe, the change in procedures to identify who you were and who you are and where you're going. It was all quite surreal.
Yeah, it was crazy. The flight that crashed in Shanksville, that flew right over Cleveland, kind of circled around Cleveland. The air traffic controllers over here were really scrambling, and it was crazy, especially a few days afterwards. I actually tried to get back in the Navy after September 11th. I was going through a recruiter. I was going to get in the Seabees, kind of as an honor to my grandfather, and I broke my leg playing hockey that December. The paperwork was in motion and I was ready to go. And
wow.
The guy said, "Yeah, you're in your 30s. Nah, figure out another way to help." So
that's funny you mentioned. I have a friend, Mike Twister. We flew A7s together back in the RAG in Lemoore. And he, after his department hit, when he was in 122, a wing came off his airplane in the break, and he was able to eject and get out safely, and he survived and all that. But his wife said, let's get out of the Navy and go fly airlines. So anyway, that's what he did. But for whatever reason, I don't know if he got furloughed or he just didn't like it. But I was working up in Beauport at NMPC up in Washington. And I got a call from him. He said, "Hey, Greg, to this Twister, I want to get back in, I think, and give it a shot." I said, "Well, okay." And we went through got him to the, he went down to the Pensacola to get his traps. Excuse me. During his CQ, he had a cold cat shot and his airplane went into the water. He had to eject. He was lucky to land in the coaming of the ship, but he was injured, and he got out of there, and he had to think really hard whether he wanted to continue or not. But he did. He went through, and he got back in. He went to finish training, and he went out to Japan. He was on the carrier out there, and flew out there until he lost an engine when he was on a triple SC mission about 200 miles from the ship, and he had to eject again. So he he didn't continue in the Navy after that. That was his third airplane, but none of which was his fault. I mean, it's one of those things. He's
3 ejections. Boy, I bet he's got some stories of those though.
yeah, he's a superb pilot, excellent pilot, but a wing coming off, a cold cat shot, an engine, it's a hazardous job, and some of us are lucky and some of us aren't, but it's a challenging environment.
Well, a kid that my nephew went to high school with, he just posted some photos. He's in the Navy, and I guess he just qualified to go to jet school, so he gets to fly jets now. So that's pretty amazing. It's good for him. So
Yeah.
I hope he sees this too. So, but gotta love Navy aviation.
Well, maybe he shouldn't see this. He didn't want to get too,
oh yeah,
yeah,
maybe
freaked
I
out.
won't send it to him. Well, listen, sir, I think I've taken up enough of your time. I really appreciate you doing with me. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Well, you made me remember a lot of stuff, and we mentioned some folks that you love while you're there, and you remember all the great times. So yeah, a lot of great memories. Again, it was a pleasure to serve, and really a pleasure to serve with guys like you that really loved what you were doing out there. And again, everything isn't peaches and cream out there, right? But it has great memories, and you learn a lot, and it really prepares you for life.
It made me a man, and I learned a lot. Responsibility, everything I am today. It's a huge part of it's because of the Navy, and being in that squadron with you guys, and so I'm proud to have served.
Joe, I think the Navy did a good job with you then. I think.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Well,
all right, sir. Well, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Well, I'm still here, and I don't think I'm going anywhere, but I am going on a cruise, but an easier cruise than what we're used to.
You're not doing any cat shots off that cruise?
No. Just the gangway up and down. That's all.
All right.
All right, Joe.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, Joe.
And I'll talk to you soon.
It's a pleasure.
You too. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.